You know what the best thing about October is? The fact that you get to make everything, and I mean everything, in your life about horror or scary stuff. Well, every movie or game at least. So, I figured why not get into the spirit of the season by making a video on scary stuff in video games, or at least stuff that I perceived as scary. See, I haven't actually played that many scary games, though I do find myself enjoying horror as more of an aesthetic, meaning for the season I prefer playing something like Doom or Castlevania that's more spooky aesthetic rather than actually being scary. Reason is I'm a baby. I like scary games, but I'm also a baby, and if you think I'll play something like Resident Evil with the lights off, you're sorely mistaken. Anyways, that doesn't mean I haven't been scared by video games, oh no. When I was a kid, I got scared by tons of things in video games. Something about the interactivity of the medium, as well as the look of a game that it has to have, it gives it this uncanny feel, which heightens that creepiness when you do encounter something. When something feels genuinely wrong in a video game, it chills your soul and makes you feel hollow. Especially as a child, where you're not that familiar with video games. You don't really know what's normal and what's not. That's why I thought it'd be fun to make a video on this. Like one of those childhood trauma videos that completely miss the meaning of the term. I'll try to put every story in roughly reverse chronological order, so keep that in mind. And these are just the stuff in video games, or stuff surrounding games, that fucking terrified me. Or just scared me in general. Because some of these are definitely scary in ways that are other than others. You'll see what I mean in a bit. Also, I said this was when I was a kid, but only a couple actually happened when I was a kid. My first story involves one of the actually few horror games on this list, Silent Hill 2. When I first played Silent Hill 2, I tried to make the experience as terrifying as possible, because I wanted the true Silent Hill experience. That meant turning off all the lights and playing in my basement alone, and let me tell you it worked. I haven't beaten the game yet, but during that playthrough, the section at the beginning, taking place in the apartments, was one of the most memorable experiences ever to me. It was cramped to the point that I never felt in control in any situation, and the walls were just endless. The potential thing that could be through each door always kept me on edge, and this was just the first area. What made this so tension-filled was also the worst part. I never picked up the map. This was my first time playing, okay? Cut me some slack. That made it a bit more confusing than it had to be, and so I did end up looking some things up. You might think quickly consulting a wiki guide would remove the tension, but it just heightened the depths of my fear. Because I read ahead a bit, and the wiki guide told me I would have an unpleasant experience with Laura. I had no idea who Laura was, and I had no idea what kind of unpleasant experience I would be subjected to. That kind of threat hung over my head, and made my fear 100 times worse, because I knew something terrible would happen. I knew it would happen because of me, but I could only guess as to what horrible thing it could be. This is Silent Hill. A horrifying, sick world. I don't even want to go over what I think would have happened. Not because I need monetization or anything, have you seen my subscriber count, but because it would make me extremely uncomfortable to repeat them. Eventually, this happened.
Ow!
Ha ha.
Hey, wait! Damn it.
I mean, you wouldn't be wrong in describing that as unpleasant, but the horrific acts I imagine hardly happen here. This whole thing is pretty funny in hindsight, but considering what Silent Hill is, I don't think it was unreasonable to have that dread. Taking a pretty big shift away from that game, this next story brings us to Yakuza 4. Bear with me for a moment. So, I played Yakuza 4 and eventually I got to the big final boss. With 4 Yakuza games under my belt at this point, I understood the absolutely huge challenge these final bosses can be if you're not prepared. They absolutely kicked my ass in Yakuza 0, Kiwami 2, and, well, Mine didn't kick my ass as hard in Yakuza 3, because I was prepared that time. These Yakuza games are pretty nice because they do tell you when a final boss is about to be coming up, so as to let you prepare and buy as many healing items as you need. So naturally, I go on over to the Poppo on the other side of the street to stock up on healing items, and then I come back. Except, Yakuza 4 actually has 4 protagonists in the game, and I knew each protagonist would actually be getting their own final boss. Each character has their own inventory space, meaning to get stocked up, I'll need to buy items for all of them individually. And there's a very specific place on the map where you have to go to swap protagonists, meaning you had to painstakingly go to the local Poppo, buy a shit ton of items, go back to the hideout, go through the dialogue to switch a character, and then repeat 4 times. Way more annoying than it had to be, but eventually I stocked up for a huge and epic showdown on the Millennium Tower, and none of what I bought was healing items. My heart sunk in dread as I realized I had no healing items for any characters. Poppo doesn't even have them in Yakuza 4. You have to go to a pharmacy as opposed to a convenience store for that. Haha, more like inconvenience store. Basically, what I bought was, it looks similar to the healing items, but they restore heat instead, essentially the MP equivalent. If your heat fills up, you can do stronger attacks. Good, but not as useful as healing items, and I had no backup saves. So yes, this was scary. Like, what do I even do here? The sheer sinking feeling when I was at low health and used an item only for my health to not go up was horrible. Well, it was a happy ending. I did actually get to beat the bosses, and I didn't even have to switch to easy mode. That's because through some experimentation, I found the technique of simply running around the entire arena and using heat actions whenever I get the opportunity. I managed to beat every boss, meaning my fears were unfounded, but it was more of a what the fuck, seriously kind of fear than any existential dread of the unknown. When I first played Resident Evil 4, it was on my Nintendo Switch. It was a great time, and I thoroughly enjoyed the game. Remember though, the Switch has that really annoying take a picture button. I think I must have accidentally taken a few photos like I do for like every game. So I wasn't exactly sure what. I don't really remember what they were. So I finished the game, and a couple months later I used that same SD card I used to save the game for something else on my computer. And what the hell is this? There was an unmarked folder on my computer, and I genuinely thought something was really wrong. Like I was hacked, and my computer is now displaying bloody Jesus. I had zero memory of this at all. Of course, a second later I realized and what it had come from, but at the same time, yeah, that was pretty creepy. Another story happened with Resident Evil 7. RE7 is the type of game I would have been absolutely terrified at every step by if I wasn't playing it in broad daylight. But hey, I was, and I wasn't really that scared by it. Until my sister walks in. No, I wasn't scared by her. She watched me play for a moment, and I joked that I was now scared a hillbilly was going to come here and threaten to chop my head off with a chainsaw. Immediately, the literal second I say this, the doorbell rings. We're frozen in fear by the fact that it happened literally when I said that. Then we laugh it off, and then we get actually scared, but this time from the anxiety. It was probably just a package being delivered, not something interesting like Girl Guide cookies or a hillbilly coming to kill us, to be clear. What's important to note is I'm the type of person to get a little frustrated when playing games sometimes. It's just a bad habit of mine that comes out when I find a game especially frustrating, or just harder than I thought it would be. One such case being the fighting game Garo Mark of the Wolves, or Fatal Fury Mark of the Wolves. This is irrelevant, but I actually kind of prefer it being called Fatal Fury. Anyways, I was just getting absolutely destroyed by CPUs in the arcade mode. Just completely trashed by this surprisingly hard game. And just as I lost one game, I slammed a hand into the keyboard in frustration, and the game froze. Okay, maybe that's the sign to stop playing, and nope, it won't let me exit. This can actually be. Nope, offline doesn't work. I held it, and my computer wouldn't restart. Well, fuck. This laptop was old and actually kind of falling apart, so it was really on its last legs. But now it's forever taunting me, showing me the fact that I lost. This was terrifying, because to go to my parents and be like, hey, this laptop is broken, and showing them this just feels embarrassing, you know? So feeling that fear of shame and fear that I had just lost everything on this laptop, I just closed it and hoped it would go away. And actually it did. After a few hours, my computer was not broken. But still, this little Garo Mark of the Wolves death scare was definitely a warning, and my computer died for good a few weeks later. I was actually playing Miles Edgeworth Investigations 2 at the time, but luckily not at the exact moment it died. I played the first couple of chapters and have no motivation to play it again. You haven't played Prosecutor's Path because you're scared of piracy. I haven't played Prosecutor's Path because my laptop was a fucking piece of shit. We're not the same. My next game is something that is, again, actually meant to be scary. Some of these are obviously unorthodox ways of being scary, but this one's actually terrifying. It's a psychological horror game called Milk Inside a Bag of Milk Inside a Bag of Milk Inside a Bag of Milk. It's a weird Russian visual novel where you play as essentially a voice inside of a severely mentally damaged girl's brain as she goes to get a bag of milk. The screen is this monochromatic dark pink and black, and the game looks hazy. A nightmare doesn't even begin to describe how it feels. The girl describes her life, and throughout the game, you're essentially forced to torment her through dialogue options, whether you want to or not. It's only about 20 minutes, and I think it's a pretty profound game. I'm not going to go over why, because there's one moment specifically that was scary to me. At the grocery store, this girl tries to talk to the employee, but seemingly all he says, or at least all the girl perceives, is the letter O. You ask what's going on, and she says he's trying to torment her. He somehow knows she's scared of the letter O. She begins to explain why she's so scared of it when her dialogue is cut off by... I fucking jumped at that gaping hole jump scare which filled the screen, and it's just, I don't know, it's just that I certainly understand her fear of the letter O. And that kind of creeps me out. I've had irrational fears before, although not quite the level of a letter of the alphabet, and I think that's part of the reason it felt so scary, even after the initial jump scare shock wore off. Because after that moment, there's just a little bit more sense in the irrational to me. And it's a game that makes you question viewing yourself as a sane person. That is, of course, not to say mentally ill people are scary or anything. If anything, this is a game about empathizing with them. But it is scary how a brain can work like this, how it's possible for certain situations to make someone self-destructive. Funny named Milk Game exposes this. Anyways, this next one is One Piece Pirate Warriors 4. And the story will contain spoilers for One Piece's Whole Cake Island arc. So if you care, skip forward until you no longer see One Piece footage. When I was first watching the One Piece series, I found the website for One Piece Pirate Warriors 4, which listed out the playable characters. And as I found out more about the world and characters of One Piece, I was intrigued by this website. I knew who so few of the characters were, and it was this fun game when I went through to look at this website again and try to find out who all these characters are. I would eventually find out this game's roster kinda sucks. It ditches a lot of super iconic arc villains like Enel, Perona, and Moria, and just adds a ton of characters from the latest arc. an obnoxious and unnecessary amount of characters from the Whole Cake Island saga. I like characters like Smoothie or Cracker that you wouldn't really expect to get being added, but each individual Germa member, that's too much, and there were a lot of snubs in this game, which was pretty disappointing. Only there was one character who has a very prominent role in the Whole Cake Island arc, and he does not have a playable role in One Piece Pirate Warriors 4. Pedro. He even sails with the straw hat, and he has a big role in fights, but not here. As I watched this series, I thought of this game's roster, and I started to think the worst, as Pedro got more and more focus. I like this character, and now this video game was giving me a creeping suspicion that the Reaper was rapidly approaching on poor Pedro, and that's why he never had a playable role in Pirate Warriors 4. Yeah, that came true. Pedro eventually passed away. The moment was pretty sad, but it was that creeping sense that made the moment feel a lot more worse than it had to be. I wasn't absolutely terrified by losing this character, but I was scared by thinking of what the blow would do to the characters, and what loss everyone would have to deal with. The lead up, it was way worse than what actually happened. Finally, this is the only one that happened when I wasn't like a teenager or anything. It's the first one in this video where I was a literal child. I was scared by kind of the Zelda series in general. I was intrigued by this series. I knew quite a bit of it, given that it's one of the big Nintendo series. There were 3 things in total though I want to highlight. One is the Imprisoned from Skyward Sword. I saw this thing's design online, and it haunted me. I saw it when I closed my eyes at night and shit. Its design is a simple shape, yet it's textured and has these sharp scales, which gives you a chilling thought about what this creature can do. It's masked with shadow. It has rows and rows of razor-sharp teeth. It even looks like it has blood on its scales. And worst of all, it looks nothing like something from Zelda. It looks like it's from Beetlejuice or something. It's seriously felt wrong for the Zelda series. I think the Imprisoned is sick design now, and the amount of fear I felt by just seeing pictures of it on the internet and its trophy in Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, it's kind of a big part of that. Before finding that one creepy picture of the Imprisoned, I did have the Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition on GameCube. I didn't play it that much because, again, the internet scared me off from it. Ocarina of Time has some stuff in it I wouldn't touch with a 6-foot pole as a kid. I saw these memes about the bottom of the well, and every second I saw of that location made me want to reject it. That can't seriously be a thing in a Nintendo game, I thought. I pushed it away as I played, but all I could think about was that creepy Beneath the Well segment. The little flashes of bloody dark cellars and hands that want to drag you to God knows where, because you're clearly already in a hell-like place. And the inside of the Deku Tree dungeon really isn't that scary at all. But as a kid, I saw the absolute nightmare that comes up later, and it really made me want to avoid this game at all costs. I didn't get past that first dungeon. Unlike with Ocarina of Time though, I actually didn't even touch Majora's Mask, because that moon made me want to completely avoid the game. Yeah, I was scared of Majora's Moon. Do I even need to explain this one? I don't want to play a game where this thing is in the sky staring at me 24/7. Damn. What I could manage to get through a bit more though was the Forsaken Fortress in the Wind Waker. This was one of the first times I was exposed to stealth in a video game. You don't have any weapons, and you have to avoid these moblins. It made me feel so powerless, as I didn't really have an understanding of what to do and where to go. Nowadays, it's a very easy segment, but then I got nowhere, and any effort I made, any attempt to explore, was a mistake. Either I got caught and thrown back into prison immediately, or the Miniblins show up and kill me in a few seconds. These literal devils, just look at them. They're terrifying, they swarm you, and I don't think I need to explain this either. I respect the hell out of horror media. It's an aesthetic I love, and getting scared is a pretty unifying experience. But what I find almost more memorable than that is when a fun coincidence happens or something goes just a little wrong, and it genuinely shocks you for a moment, makes you feel like there are cracks in your day-to-day life that you aren't noticing, but they're there. Even if you think I'm reading too much into this, it's regardless still some funny, scary stories, I think. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later.